Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly podcast. I'm Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom Orr. Tom, how's it going?
Tony, I don't know how we did it, but we got the hotel room that has the perfect view of Mercedes-Benz Stadium, the perfect Tony Gerdeman view where there's a pillar right in the middle of the stadium based on where the desk in this room is, but it's still pretty good. It's like we paid for the Falls View room at Niagara Falls, but I don't think we paid anything extra for this. So this worked out pretty well. Yeah,
and we are far away from the elevator, so we're not constantly hearing it. Others are complaining about the fact that they're too close to the elevator and they're hearing it a lot. So not our problem. Very happy to be here. Nice room. And Tom, is today Saturday, just 2 days away.
Yes.
I know that's your thing. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to count down the days to the game, but we're almost here. We got done with our media day today, talked to a bunch of Ohio State players and coaches today. So we'll discuss all of that, of course, answer all of your questions, go ahead and throw them in the chat, throw the super chats in there, and they'll go to the front of the line.
Yes, and we also would like to thank our friends at Grateful Griddle. If you are planning your next event, you should make it unforgettable with Grateful Griddle, Columbus's favorite food truck, serving up smash burgers, gourmet sandwiches, and good vibes. Book your catering today at gratefulgriddleoh.com. All right, so we got a media day this morning. We had a Ohio State open practice time this afternoon. We titled the show before we went to the open practice. We are not clickbaity people. I'm just going to tell you, there was not a tremendous amount of information learned at Ohio State's open practice time this afternoon. This is one of these things where we go to these all the times, and sometimes, there's like a spectrum of boy, you learned something really interesting here, or hey, is this guy going to be practicing or whatever? I go back to the Rose Bowl a few years ago where it's Thayer Munford has a back injury. Is he going to practice or not? Well, he's sitting in a golf cart. Well, we have learned a lot of information right now. This was not on that end of the spectrum.
No, and the lack of seeing anything in terms of being allowed to see anything, even no periods seen, just some stretching and jogging. But Ryan Day and all of the coaches have talked about it. Denzel Burke is fine. He's good to go. Jim Knowles said that today. JT Tuimoloau is good to go. JT himself said it was just a basketball ankle. He rolled his ankle like you do in basketball. No big deal. He's fine. So relatively healthy given 15 games having been played in a long season. Longest season in college football history. With all of that being said, they're in a pretty good spot.
Yeah, considering how long they've had to practice and play and how many snaps they've gone through this season, it is pretty remarkable where they are. And just look at Notre Dame. I mean, Ohio State suffered some significant injuries. It's not like they've had this magical season where everyone's just made it through completely unscathed. They lost the player who we said before the season, boy, the one guy they really can't afford to lose is Josh Simmons, and then they lost him at Oregon. And then they lost Josh Simmons' backup. And then they lost their Remington Award-winning center. And it's boy, the offensive line, that room is where you have maybe the least depth compared to what you need to feel good about things. And they have just kind of made it work. And that's been really, really impressive. Notre Dame has had a bunch of injuries as well. But they're in a spot where their offensive line injuries happened a little later in the year, probably a little less time to adjust and adapt to that than Ohio State has had. Doesn't mean that they won't come out with a good offensive line for the national championship. Just means we haven't seen them come out with a good good offensive line yet.
Yeah, and I do want to talk about the Ohio State offensive line because we talked to a few of them today. But Marcus Freeman did say today that they've been practicing Charles Jagasaw at left tackle, and that is kind of the way things are leaning right now. So he would probably start at left tackle, which lends me to believe that Rocco Spindler is okay at right guard, okay enough. Anthony Knapp, the true freshman or redshirt freshman who has been starting all season at left tackle, the high ankle sprain is going to keep him out. Marcus Freeman said that earlier in the week or last week, whichever. And so now it's looking like Jagasaw at left tackle and Spindler back at right guard. And this will be Jagisaw's second game this year. First was about 25 snaps against Penn State. He missed all of the regular season and half of the playoffs with a torn pectoral muscle, I believe. So he played in, I think, 2 or 3 games last year as a true freshman, including starting the bowl game at left tackle. This will now be his second start and maybe his 5th game. And good luck. You're facing a defensive line, a defense that has 16 sacks in their 3 playoff games, 11 of those time coming from the defensive ends.
Yeah, the tackle spot has been one that we have kind of been talking about with every Ohio State opponent during the college football playoff, starting with Tennessee and then through Oregon and then through Texas. And now we're having kind of the same conversation with Notre Dame. And yeah, you've got some questions at the tackle spots. On the left tackle, the left tackle we just talked about, right tackle, Emil Wagner, he's had some issues here and there. That has been one of the constant themes, the consistent themes through this 4-game run for Ohio State is if they can get some pressure off the edge, if the defensive line can really kind of handle things and have those 4 guys sort of handle the run game for the most part, handle the pass rush for the most part, get pressure with just those 4 guys, not have to bring a bunch of extra pressure, bring a bunch of extra blitzers, then you're getting pressure. And you're also able to have 6, 7 guys out there in pass coverage, and you're able to have those. If you know the blitz is coming, you don't have to drop those guys very deep. So you can have 6, 7 guys pretty close to the line of scrimmage where then that immediate throw, get that ball out quick, which is sort of the game plan when you have a lot of pressure. You got 6, 7 guys there. It is not too easy to get that ball out. And then that helps those defensive ends get home. All this stuff, they talk all the time about pass coverage and pass rush working together. This feels like this is the time when that has all kind of coalesced together for the Ohio State defense.
Yeah, it's all one big piece where the pass defense starts with the pass rush. And really, you're talking about if you get it with just those 4, the back 7 then can change the picture any number of ways. And that's what has been delaying the quarterback that they're facing is all of these different pictures that they're getting with too many people involved and just slowing down the quarterback, slowing down legitimate experienced quarterbacks like Dylan Gabriel. I won't throw Nico Iamaleava in that picture, just being a redshirt freshman. Then you got Riley Leonard, another 5th-year guy who's seen a lot of things. And I thought today the Ohio State defense was very complimentary of him. Jack Sawyer is very complimentary of him, saying like people don't respect his passing enough, but what he can throw. I think he's probably talking about you, Tom, frankly. But overall, a very this past defense has been fantastic all season long for the most part. They had their rough game against Oregon, which was part execution, part game plan. And since then, the passing game plans have been really, really good, and they're getting better and better.
Yeah, it has really kind of come together. And this is the year where the 3rd year of the Jim Knowles defense, when you looked at Jim Knowles' time in Oklahoma State, they went from 90-something to 30-something or 20-something to like number 3 or number 5, whatever it was, in defense when he was at Oklahoma State. And you've sort of seen that at Ohio State where they started better off, better than 90. That was kind of where they were in the Kerry Combs years. But they started off in a much better spot just because there's a lot more talent to work with. But then you get into the spot where, okay, you're there. And then the second year, you got rid of the big plays. And so then they were a little bit better. And then this year, they've been even more consistent. They haven't had the, oh boy, they're great, except they can't get off the field in the second half. They've gotten off the field in the second half. They forced turnovers, which they hadn't done before. They've gotten to the quarterback, which they hadn't done before. All of this stuff has really fallen into place for them. This is the year when it feels like you've been waiting for a couple of years. This is why you brought Jim Knowles in. You brought Jim Knowles in because this is what he did at Oklahoma State with not nearly the level of talent that he has at Ohio State. This is what Jim Knowles looks like with the Ohio State level of, and boy, this is the defense that has been promised, and this is the defense that has been delivered this year.
Yeah, and he had to do it in a much shorter time frame. He did it in 4 years at Oklahoma State. He's done it in 2 years at Ohio State, and yeah, he kind of had a head start with the Ohio State talent. But you saw the growing pains that this defense has gone through, and you've seen them all come together, and now you've just had this extremely veteran unit that you can ask almost anything of. And then also, not can you ask a lot, but they give you a lot. And really getting home with the front 4 has been a key in making the blitzes more effective and making the back 6, back 7 more effective as well. So it's a very veteran unit that works so complementarily well right now. And they tackle well, which is another key thing. They know where they're going. You've got some guys here that get to the ball before, like they know from the snap where the ball is going. They're able to get there. They read it well. They react. But it's also the understanding of what an offense is trying to do, I think, is huge as well, because you can react and be slow, they're not slow.
Mm-hmm.
They know where they're going.
Well, they know the defense, and that helps a lot. It's the third year in this defense, and it's the third year for most of these guys in this defense, where it's not just Jim Knowles has been here 3 years. It's Jim Knowles has been here 3 years, and the whole defensive front has been here 3 years with him. And Cody Simon's been here 3 years with him, and Denzel Burke has been here 3 years with him, and Lathan Ransom has been here 3 years with him, and Jordan Hancock has been here 3 years with him. These guys know the defense forwards, backwards. They don't have to think at all. It's just react. And then it's not just knowing the defense. It's also they've seen all of this stuff. All these offenses have tried. They've faced so many different offenses. They've faced offenses. They've faced high-level talent offenses in the college football playoff and some of the other big games they've played. So you're not seeing anything new. You're not getting fooled. You're not having to take a second and going, okay, I haven't seen this. I wonder what they're doing. They know. And, Notre Dame has – Al Golden's been there a little while, but it's that Notre Dame defense, because of some of the injuries, they have so many young guys. They've got so many first and second year guys who are getting meaningful snaps there. They don't have the benefit of having played for Al Golden for 3 years or having just played in college and seen all of these different kinds of offenses for 3 years. It's just a fraction of a second. But that's the difference between you get a hand on a guy and you get a guy down. It's like, I got a hand on him, but I didn't get it, and he got the corner, and then that's the little fraction of the second where that stuff matters in games like this.
Yeah, and Jim Knowles has talked about it at the start of the year, late last year, as the defense was getting better and guys had been in it for a year. You're no longer teaching it. You're enhancing it and mastering the purpose of it, and then just continuing to add more. And then Caleb Downs just comes in and kind of changes things even more, because now you've got a guy that you can do extra things with, and everybody else can operate around him. And Jordan Hancock, the same thing. He can, he was just a slot guy, and then stopped being just a slot guy, and is a slot guy, a deep safety, a run support guy, whatever you need, and can also play corners. So like the luxuries that they have in terms of some of these players is that's going to make any defensive coordinator better, but it makes a great defensive coordinator even greater. And then you combine those two things with the talent and the guy that can scheme it up and might end up winning a national championship.
Well, and this is sort of all of the pieces coming together for Ohio State at the same time, in terms of the personnel, in terms of the scheme, in terms of the development, in terms of just understanding the defense, and in terms of Jim Knowles really being able to do everything that Jim Knowles wants to do. It has felt like Jim Knowles has been at times sort of not using the full toolbox. You have seen, we talked to Ross Fulton about this a bunch on different sort of scheme shows, and you keep hearing, boy, this is a lot like what Jim Knowles is doing at Oklahoma State. And yeah, when Jim Knowles runs the Oklahoma State stuff with better personnel, you get pretty darn good results. And you're seeing that has shown up in terms of pass rush, guys getting home after years of, well, boy, they're almost getting there. And the Nick Saban antiquated defense. That's one of those comments that is going to go down as something that people remember and go, he was wrong. And it's like, no, he wasn't wrong. What they've done has changed since then. And that may have been, I don't know that was exactly the wake-up call, the Nick Saban quote. That probably was more, hey, giving up 32 points at Oregon and losing, that was probably more the wake-up call. But the response there from Nick Saban was something that Ohio State fans took note of, and has certainly been a little of a storyline around this defense. And since that comment, boy, the defense has changed quite a bit, and it doesn't look antiquated at all. It looks pretty state-of-the-art. Yeah,
it was. We went a period of time between that comment and talking to Jim Knowles.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was maybe a couple of weeks after that I asked him about it. And what did you think? And he's like, I didn't hear it. What did he say? And I said that, like just a front four, whatever, is just rushing with a basic front four and is kind of antiquated. And he's like, well, the results are the results. And, he's one of the greatest of all time, so you can't argue with it. But now you look and it's like they're getting a lot of results with just doing the front four, but also they're adding to it. They're blitzing more than they have, although they've dialed back the blitzes in the playoffs because the advantage with the defensive line on some of these offensive lines has been so overwhelming that you don't need to get crazy with the blitzes, but you can also effectively throw them in when, like, I don't know how often you wanted to blitz Dylan Gabriel and really, how often do you want to blitz Nico Iamaleava when you kind of need defenders behind you for these RPOs? Like, why invite big plays when you don't necessarily need to? But he's going to continue to dial things up. I think they blitzed a little bit more against Texas, and it wouldn't shock me if they do it a little bit more in this one. But I think this is another one, though. Do you just decide to change the picture around the passing lanes, or do you try to create some chaos for Riley Leonard, knowing that he has the ability to get outside of that chaos and then do something?
Well, and one of the guys, I think it might have been Cody Simon, one of the guys was asked about, hey, you've had to defend running quarterbacks like Dillon Gabriel, but, is this a little bit different with Riley Leonard? And it was like, yeah, Dillon Gabriel wasn't getting 20 designed runs called for him. Riley Leonard might get 20 designed runs called for him on Monday night. So, yes, they're both running quarterbacks, but they're a different kind of running quarterback, where Dillon Gabriel was, if you flush him out of the pocket, he'll extend plays with his legs. Nico Iamaleava was kind of the same way. Those two guys were very similar. Riley Leonard is a lot more of a designed run kind of quarterback. Riley Leonard is more of a J.T. Barrett type quarterback rather than a Dillon Gabriel type quarterback.
He's a pre-Ohio State Will Howard type, where he'll have 14 carries in the game and can be power. There'll be a draw. There'll be some read option, and then there's also scrambles. Like any kind of quarterback run you can think of, he'll have. And sometimes he'll throw a pass, get batted up, and he'll catch it and run with it then.
And sometimes he'll throw a second pass.
I wasn't going to say anything, but yes, he will also do that.
Yes, I would recommend he not do that, because it turns out that is not something that is
illegal.
A violation of the agreed upon rules, in the words of Paul Keels. This is a defensive opportunity for Ohio State, where the offensive line is a little bit banged up. The Notre Dame passing game is not super dynamic down the field. We have not seen them throw the ball downfield a lot in the 3 games we've watched, and I still have rewatched the USC game on my list. We'll see if I can squeeze that in later today. But they don't stretch the field vertically in the passing game, at least so far as we've seen, outside of maybe 1 play a game, 2 plays a game. The wide receiver core is okay, but it's not incredible. And Bo Collins, as I'll make a mention in the comments, Bo Collins is banged up. Yeah, Bo Collins still dealing with a little bit of a calf injury. You saw Greathouse have a big game against Penn State. We've seen Faison have some nice games against who did they play earlier in the playoff? Indiana and Georgia. So there's some talent there, and Mitchell Evans at tight end. There's some talent there. Riley Leonard's game is not bombed away. This is not a Quinn Ewers quarterback. This is really kind of the opposite of the Quinn Ewers quarterback, where Quinn Ewers was not ever going to be on a designed run. He had a nice first down scramble last week, but he's not ever going to be a designed runner, and he's pretty comfortable trying to throw the ball down the field. This is kind of the opposite of that. And with Notre Dame not having a downfield passing game, and with Jeremiah Love being not 100%, with that still banged up with that knee brace on, and with the offensive line having at least some question marks, Charles Jagasaw might step in and be better than Anthony Knapp. He was projected as the starter ahead of Anthony Knapp at the beginning of the season, but then he hasn't played. So how do you balance he was probably better 4 months ago, but has no reps right now, as opposed to a full season of reps. I don't know. I don't know exactly how you balance that, but there's certainly questions on that offensive line. And when you have an Ohio State defense that really is healthy, and JT Tuimoloau, all indications are fine, no problem, should be full go. Denzel Burke, fine, no problem, should be full go. That all sort of looks to me like, boy, Notre Dame is really going to have to scrap and claw and do some real creative stuff if they want to put points on the board consistently.
Yeah, Ohio State is as full strength as they've been since the Seth McLaughlin injury. So they're ready to go. Like whoever you need to call on is available to be called upon. And they're not as deep as they once were, but also in some areas they continue to get deeper. Like they can go deeper in the defensive line than they've had. Like they're still using depth. I do wonder if they might have to go a little bit deeper in this one just to handle the running game. And when I say deeper, just more snaps for Caden McDonald and a Hero Canoe instead of like 7 or 8, maybe it's 13 or 14. But also then you got 1 game left, and we know when it gets into games like this, Larry Johnson can often be like, I'm sticking with the guys I know. I've got 4 seniors here. I'm going to ride them until they're pulling themselves off the field. And with these guys, they're not going to pull themselves off the field unless they just ran 83 yards for a touchdown. Then you might see Jack Sarah be like, I need 1 minute.
Well, and then the question is, can Notre Dame's not a big tempo team that we've seen. We've seen them run a little bit of tempo, but not a lot. And the question then is, can Notre Dame string together a 10-play drive? If Notre Dame's going 3 and out, you don't need to rotate your guys at all. They can go on the field for 3 plays and then go sit on the bench for a while and then go in for 3 more plays. Can Notre Dame string together an 8, 10, 12, 14-play drive? If you can, then that's going to force Ohio State to get into that depth a little more. If Ohio State can get off the field on 3rd down, and I will say again, boy, so much of this depends on what they do on 1st down, what they do on 2nd down. Does Notre Dame stay on schedule? If Notre Dame gets to 3rd and 2, go ahead and just mentally say, okay, I have reached the stage of acceptance that Notre Dame is going to get a 1st down. They're going to convert their 3rd and 2s. They may not convert their 3rd and 6s. If Ohio State gets them in 3rd and 6, and you get off the field, you don't have to play that depth. If you get in some 3rd and 2s and you get to the point where, you're stringing together 8 plays, 10 plays, well, then you may need to get into that depth a little bit more. And the good news for Ohio State is they've played so much more of that depth in the back half of the season, where I think you feel probably better about Caden McDonald, for example. Like Caden McDonald, Edric Houston going on in the inside, Kenyatta Jackson, Caden Curry going in on the outside. It was this time, last year, the Notre Dame game, the 2023 game, that was where JT Tuimoloau and Jack Sawyer played every snap at defensive end. They're absolutely not going to do that this game. It's really just, to me, a matter of, is it 10 plays for Caden Curry and Kenyatta Jackson, 20 plays? Is it 30? Are you splitting it more or less evenly between the 1s and the 2s there? Because those guys have certainly shown that they can be productive, shown that they can be disruptive, and they've certainly earned a bigger role. They're going to have a bigger role than they did last year. It's just a question of how much bigger.
Yeah, I'm fascinated to see what Larry Johnson does in this one. And it's all going to be dependent also on what is the score, what is the circumstance, what's the situation, because you're going to be much more willing to substitute when it's 14-0 Ohio State as opposed to 7-0 Notre Dame, where you're like, we need our starters out there all the time. And then by the 4th quarter, it's like, gosh, I wish I would have been able to sub some guys, but the game just never allowed for it. But you've got your backup defensive ends are 3rd-year players. So they should be trusted. If they're not trusted by now, then good luck trusting them next year when they're starters. So Larry Johnson feels good about his guys, but he feels great about his starters. But you just can't continue to ride them unless, like you said, it's 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out. These long drives that Notre Dame can put together with their 3rd and short and 4th and short, that's where those might add up in the 4th quarter more so than just in the 1st and the 2nd quarter.
Well, you've seen Notre Dame sort of have that slow start, build up some momentum during the game thing. And they are sort of one of those teams where if they can run the ball, Notre Dame, if they can run the ball, is so different than Notre Dame if they can't run the ball. If Notre Dame can run the ball and they can just kind of keep hammering at you and hammering at you and hammering at you, they wear you down. And we've seen them do that to teams, and it sometimes takes a little while. But again, we have this middle 8 conversation. It feels like we're talking about the middle 8 every show, but that's such a big piece of what Notre Dame has done to be successful in these playoffs, where you go in against Georgia and it's 3-3 with 4 minutes left in the first half, and then you kick a field goal at 6-3. Okay, great. It's 6-3. Who cares? And then the defense forces a turnover. They get a quick touchdown, 1 play, 13 yards, and boom, all of a sudden it's 13-3 going into halftime. And then they return the opening kickoff in the second half. Boom, it's 20-3, and the game's functionally over. And it's like 1 minute ago, this game was 3-3. How could that possibly be? You saw them do that more with just the offense against Penn State. Same thing. It was 10-0 Penn State, another slow start, but Penn State didn't, they were up 10-0, but they hadn't really pulled away. It wasn't 34-0 like the Rose Bowl. It wasn't even 21-0 like the first round game from between Ohio State and Tennessee. It was just 10-0. And Notre Dame kicks a field goal before halftime. They put together that nice long drive with Steve Angeli, the backup in. And then they get the ball to start the second half and just methodically, boom, boom, boom. This was not the Ohio State-Oregon game where it's like, and you get a 60-yard touchdown pass, and you get a 50-yard touchdown pass, and you get a 40-yard touchdown. It was not that. It was just, boom, just hammering. and then they had a touchdown, and then it's 10-10, and it's like, how did that happen? And then they got another stop, and they scored another touchdown, and it's 17-10 Notre Dame. And Penn State, to their credit, came back and took the lead. But that's two games where Notre Dame was way behind and then took the lead in the span of like half of a quarter of clock time, and another where it was tied and Notre Dame functionally put the game away in 1 minute of clock time. If Notre Dame can run the ball, that's the kind of stuff they can do. If Notre Dame can't run the ball and you have the short drives, then they're not moving the ball. You're keeping your defense fresh and off the field. You're probably keeping Notre Dame's drive. You have to assume Ohio State's going to be able to sustain some drives. So then you're keeping Notre Dame's defense, which is kind of probably thinner than Ohio State's on the field. That's where maybe the Notre Dame defense wears out and Ohio State can kind of hit the gas and pull away in the second half. But so much of that depends on, it all goes back to, can Notre Dame run the ball?
Yeah. Well, and even if Notre Dame gets down 10-0, 14-0, they've been down before. Mm-hmm. They don't really care about that. They slow and steady wins the race for them. They'll just continue to fight back and play defense. And if they get stops and a short field here or there, like 14-0 after one quarter or 20 minutes can very easily become 14-7 at half, and 14-7 at half is nothing. So Ohio State, as we keep saying, if you get up, stay up. Keep trying to put points on the board like you did against Tennessee, like you did against Oregon, because if you don't, Notre Dame just has a way, and that's something I keep talking to. I've talked to the players and the coaches about. When you're dealing with a team that just finds a way, it's a complete pain because they don't always know when they're beaten. Like in the Braveheart, would you know when you're beaten? That sort of thing. Would you know when to give up? Notre Dame, I don't think really knows when to give up.
So, and let's flip to the other side of the ball real quickly, because this is from one of the Notre Dame fans in the chat, and I think this is a good point. I think as an Irish fan, the main key is to get Howard uncomfortable, and Golden will have crazy blitz packages. Al Golden, the defensive coordinator for Notre Dame. Similar to Georgia, where the defensive line was outweighed by 60 pounds, just confused them. This is an Ohio State offensive line that is not the most veteran. It's not the most experienced, and that's largely because of injuries. You lose your starting left tackle, who is a multi-year starter. You lose your starting center, who's the Remington Award winner, and your veteran left guard becomes your left tackle. And then you've got three guards shuffling in and out, and you've got a new center. And, there's a lot of sort of shuffling that's going on that Ohio State offensive line. I think this is, we'll see if Notre Dame can get home with four guys. That's going to, that's one thing. Can they just do it with twists and stunts up front? Without Riley Mills, they have, Howard Cross is really solid in the middle of that defensive line, but they definitely miss Riley Mills in the middle of that defensive line. If they can get home with those four guys, that's one kind of day for the Notre Dame defense. If they have to bring pressure, and we have seen Al Golden bring a bunch of packages. You go back to the Georgia game where Georgia had the ball inside Notre Dame's 20-yard line, and Al Golden brought 7 guys maybe, and they forced a fumble on ETN. That's great if it works. That's not always going to work. If Will Howard can get the ball out, this will not be the first blitz that Will Howard has seen. If Will Howard can get the ball out quickly, that can turn into a big play the other direction for Ohio State.
Yeah, well, and we know Will Howard is not impervious to bad throws and bad decisions. It's just how many are there? Because there have not been a lot. So, he will have his own, but if Notre Dame also causes a few others, then that is more than just the norm, and I think they will. I don't know if how crazy it's going to get, but they will definitely try to confuse them. And it's tough. That's a tough ask against a fifth-year senior quarterback who has started games ever since he was a freshman, who is now being coached by Chip Kelly and Ryan Day and Brian Hartline. Very well coached, and he's a smart guy. He's going to be well prepared. Jim Knowles ran some stuff against Texas that they hadn't seen all season, that they hadn't done all season. How much is Notre Dame, Al Golden, going to run this season that they haven't shown this season? Because Ohio State has seen everything that they've done, so they'll have a plan for everything that Notre Dame has done, and there'll be a read, there'll be an option, that sort of thing where wherever the blitz is coming from, there's an answer for it. Can Will Howard get those answers done? And then when there's something that he hasn't seen before, that's where you go back to your training. All the coaches say you just go back to your training, you go back to the basics. Will Howard has been training with his coaching staff for about a year now, and Again, he's not impervious to bad decisions and bad plays. I would be, Tom, I'd be pretty surprised if he does not throw an interception in this game. It's like, I think he's averaging about one a playoff game right now, maybe 0.67. But this is a big game. There are going to be big plays. This is a defense that's pretty good. They make some plays. So it's fair to expect an interception. Overall, I'm expecting a much crisper, cleaner game from Ohio State this time. I think they got the penalties out of them in the last game. A lot of that was self-inflicted. I think they realize now if we don't inflict those, then there's a pretty good chance that we will have more touchdown drives than Notre Dame.
Yeah, Ohio State had a lot of those penalties. I mean, you had the one with Travion Henderson that was just a sort of instinctual reaction and cost them 15 yards, probably killed the drive. You had some pass pro kind of stuff where I don't know that Notre Dame's defensive line, as presently constructed, is going to be able to present exactly the same level of challenge that the Texas defensive line did. And if they don't, then that probably limits some of the false start penalties. That probably limits some of the holding penalties. That all, and the fact that this is probably not going to be a majority Notre Dame crowd.
Right.
We haven't really gotten asked about it, and I don't have a great sense. But I would sort of think this is probably going to be a fairly evenly split. These are two fan bases that are big national fan bases, but they're coming, the home territory is about the same distance away. I think it's probably a fairly even split. Ohio State against Texas, 60-40, 65-35. Ohio State was running silent count at times in that game in the Cotton Bowl. It's basically a home game for Texas. And so that sort of impacts your offensive line a little bit. That puts your offensive line just a half of a beat behind where they would normally be. If they don't have to do that, that helps. If you're facing it's not a bad defensive line. It's just not quite as good as Texas, because Texas is one of the best defensive lines in the nation. If Riley Mills is in this game for Notre Dame, probably this is a very similar defensive line, but he's not. So it just feels like Ohio State is set up between probably hearing about penalties and being disciplined quite a bit, but also not getting stressed in quite the way that you did. And, the Notre Dame wide receivers are good, but they're probably not a Matthew Golden level receiver on this team. So then you're not getting stressed in terms of pass interference calls or defensive holding calls in quite the way you were against Notre Dame. All of that stuff, kind of, you put it together and it just feels like you should end up with a lower number of penalties, lower amount of penalty yards, which means fewer drives extended for Notre Dame, fewer drives killed for Ohio State, and that all sort of points in the same general direction. Right?
It's not great math from Notre Dame, in my opinion.
Yep. Do we want to get to some questions here? We have other stuff we want to get
questions. No questions. Yes, let's absolutely do some questions.
All right, let's get to a couple of questions. Billy Tuesday says that the Ohio State team is not beat up is a testament to Day and staff. They have had a great game plan. And I think it's interesting that we didn't hear much about the game plan. Like Ryan Day was sort of crabbing at times during press conferences about, we're just not getting the same number of offensive snaps we did last year. And we kind of looked at it and went, other teams are trying to run, slow things down, but Ohio State wasn't exactly hustling around. And then you sort of started to hear about a month ago, like, that might have been a feature, not a bug.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, limiting all of the exposures, as the term is. Every snap is an exposure to somebody being hit, and those add up. And through the clock rules, which have eliminated over the course of 12 games about a game's worth of hits, and that was not a coincidence either. That was from the rules committee, and it's like, how much would be eliminated? About 60 or 70 snaps a season. It's like, well, that's a game. So if we're adding games, it's okay to eliminate a game over the course of a season. And in Ohio State, you add in huddling, and now you're reducing it even more. And both teams are huddling, and one is like, the opponent is like, why do I want Ohio State's offense on the field? I don't. So I'm going to slow things down as much as I can. And Ohio State's like, you know what? We're playing for bigger things. Like, we don't need to average 46-point game anymore. Like every year that Ryan Day had been here until last year, they were scoring over 40 points a game. before Ryan Day got there were maybe 5 seasons where Ohio State scored over 40 points a game, and then like his first 5 seasons here, they scored over 40 points a game. Things have changed, and purposes have changed, and this is a brand new game plan for the season. And I think you're going to see teams and programs and head coaches look at what Ohio State did, because this has been the plan now for almost 12 months. And this is in the February workouts. Mickey Marotti and his staff have been planning this out with the coaching staff, with the way they've run everything in workouts and practices and games. And so this has been a fantastic game plan, because as we've said, you look at Travion Henderson now, who has not been able to finish the season often enough in his career. He looks faster than he's ever been. Quinshon Judkins, who has approaching 800 career rushes or whatever, he looks just fine. The receivers are healthy. Emeka Ibuka was not healthy last year. He's good now. You talk to the offensive linemen; they've all got their bangs and their broken bones, but they're still going to fight. And like talk with Josh Fryer or in Columbus, like what hurts on an offensive lineman? He's like everything. Hands, toes, head, elbows, fingers, but you just push through, and that's kind of the expectations for any offensive lineman. Just push through. We don't want to hear about it. And they have. And
that's kind of true at every level. You talk to someone who's on one of those Ohio high school teams that makes a long run into the state tournament, and you start your year sweating your butt off during camp in August, and then you are freezing at the end of the year, and everything hurts, and it's cold, and that doesn't feel good. Your muscles are tight. That's true at every level. It's true here too. The fact that this is indoors, the fact that they have access to the cold tubs and the massages and all that stuff all probably helps a little bit, but no one is 100% this year, but they're closer to 100% than they would be otherwise. I do think, Tony, it's important to reiterate Ohio State being deliberate, not just going right to the line. The Buckeye huddle, Tony, the key to a successful season? I don't know. Go to BuckeyeHuddle.com to learn more. All right. So
I was going to say, hit the thumbs up.
Also do that. You should do that. That's also a good thing.
Can I tell you something that Chip Kelly said today that I thought was interesting? They talked about preparing for the Rose Bowl and Oregon. He talked about how Ryan Day mentioned that Oregon had to put 12 players on the field because they knew they couldn't beat them with 11. And so that was some of the messaging going into the Rose Bowl. Like, they can't beat us with 11. So just that was kind of the attitude that they took in there. Of course, Dan Lanning throwing a 12th person on the field in that game late in the game to create some consternation and stir some things up. But that was interesting. I thought that was just one thing I wanted to throw in, where Ryan Day is like, 11 on 11, they can't beat us. And so that was a very confident team that went into that Rose Bowl. It's going to be a confident team that goes into this one too.
Yep. Sean wants to know, where were we this morning at 9 a.m.? Missed your Media Day show. We had thought maybe we could do a live stream at the Media Day, and the internet over at the Georgia World Congress Center was not great. It was Georgia the country level internet, not Georgia the state level internet. So we had grand plans, and sometimes I've said this before. Like, when we get into a hotel, the first thing we do is log on to the internet, check what's the internet speed in our room, what's the internet speed in the workroom downstairs. We're up in our room right now, number one, because it's a cool view behind us, but number two, because the internet's much faster up here. We had not been to the Georgia World Congress Center until this morning when we walked in, not long before, and went, no. I think I just heard the AOL dial-up noise somewhere, so no, sorry, we can't do that.
It was also bad at the Rose Bowl at the workroom, to the point where I even went to the IT person, one of the IT people, and I was talking to him about, hey, this is really bad internet. We need better internet.
That was a Cotton Bowl.
Cotton Bowl, yeah, sorry. And so then he went and talked to his supervisors, like, well, we would have to charge you more. And I'm like, charge me more? I'm just a guy. Like, you're not for the entire hotel, for all of the media. You're going to charge.
I am not George Cotton. No. I don't know. I am not. I am not Charles Goodyear.
No. Do not charge me more. Put it on room. Where's 11 Warriors? Put it on their room.
Put it on the Underhill tab. Give me a Bloody Mary and a steak sandwich while we're at. Mark wants to know, how is JT Tuimoloau feeling? Is he starting? Yes, he is fine. He's good. He's good to go. No concerns there. I mean, he came in back in the Cotton Bowl right after that injury happened. Only missed a drive or something like that. So yeah, no concerns there at all. McChicken says, you guys should have interviewed the professional hot dog swallower.
I was so mad.
He has a name. It's Kevin. Please.
I was so mad. I got back to the media room here at the hotel, and I saw pictures that Joey Chestnut was at media day. I never saw him. I was furious.
I don't think I would recognize Joey Chestnut.
What?
Unless he was holding a bunch of half hot dogs, I don't think I would recognize Joey Chestnut.
Really? That's it's funny because I was
Will Howard did though. Will Howard was like, it's the hot dog guy.
He's American.
Yeah.
You, meanwhile, it's not a bet. I don't know who it is.
I enjoy Nathan's hot dogs, sir. I was raised on Nathan's hot dogs, sir.
Do you dip them in water?
No.
Are you even an American?
Well, sort of.
I was very disappointed that I did not get to meet one of America's great heroes.
There you go. I'm right here. Robert Howard says, I'm not sure there's been a longer week than this. I'm so ready for Monday night.
I like these 10 days. Every game should be every 10 days, but then we would have no idea what day of the week it was ever. So that would be, we'd have to change the weeks. You'd need to add 3 new days to the calendar. Then we could go with that. But, I could use a few more days to tell more stories, but yeah, I can completely understand for the fan base, just like, let's go. Today is Saturday. It is a football Saturday. Unfortunately, it is also an NFL Saturday and an NFL Sunday tomorrow. And then college football gets its day on Monday. And just a couple more sleeps. You'll be all right. You'll get there.
Yep. And Troy says 10 days between games might be good for the players, but man, the wait is killing me. And I get it. Like, I understand. I am with you. Like, I keep thinking we're going to be at the stadium 48 hours from now. I have so much more stuff. I have more stuff that I want to do that I don't have time to do because it's just these trips are so compressed and we don't have this, 5-6 days of pre-bowl where you can do all the stories you want to do. And there's so much stuff to talk about. And, we're going to end up in a little bit heading out again because we have Notre Dame practice coming up at, 4 o'clock or 4:30 or something like that. So we have to run out of here in a little bit, but there's just not enough time for everything because there's so many things I want to do and so many things I want to put together, and it's just we don't have time for all of it.
The game is almost here, and once the game is here, it's too late.
Yep. So Irish 42 says love should be full go 100% now. My concern being an Irish fan's injuries just aren't as deep and already into the depth. I don't know if my love's 100%. I mean, no one's 100% this time of year. And if you were wearing a knee brace 10 days ago, that's and Mika says heard that Love has the knee brace off, and that's fine. But there's a difference between that and being 100%.
Yeah, and that knee brace was kind of a game time decision as well. So you would assume he's still much better than he was. But again, let's see how effective that running game is because even the other guys who are healthy have not been extremely effective so far. And if they can't run it, I don't think they have much of a chance. But I do like their running backs.
Odysseus says didn't have a healthy Trey, Marv, or Emeka versus Notre Dame last year. Different animal with Tate as a third wide receiver versus Julian Fleming. This is definitely a game where you look at, we've talked about this, I think, every single playoff game so far, and you've seen it sort of play out in every single playoff game so far. Ohio State's third wide receiver and second wide receiver are better than the opposing team's second cornerback or third cornerback. Doesn't mean the opposing team has a bad second cornerback. It just means your second cornerback is going up against Emeka Egbuka, who's about to set the Ohio State all-time record for receptions and yards. That's Ohio State's second best receiver. Their third best receiver is Carnell Tate, who Marvin Harrison last year said is ahead of where I was at this point in my career. That's Ohio State's third best receiver. I know Christian Gray had a really nice play at the end of the Orange Bowl. I don't think Notre Dame fans are feeling super fantastic about Christian Gray versus whoever Christian Gray is covering. And Leonard Moore, true freshman cornerback on the other side, has looked great in the 3 games we've seen. I mean, like I have done a 180-degree flip on what I think might happen with him or where he might be. He hasn't faced Jeremiah Smith yet. He hasn't faced Emeka Egbuka yet. And, the Penn State wide receivers.
He hasn't faced Carnell Tate yet.
Yeah, the Georgia wide receivers and the Indiana wide receivers, they're fine. But the three Ohio State wide receivers are the three best wide receivers that Notre Dame will have faced in the playoff. And maybe Leonard Moore continues to surprise everyone, including me, but it's going to be a challenge that they have not faced yet.
Well, and I'm just thinking outside receivers that Notre Dame has faced this year, these might be the three best, and I'm including Emeka in that because he'll be outside as well at times. So, you're nobody from USC, and that's really the only other team you could think of offhand, who are the talented receivers that Notre Dame has faced, and it's well, Zachariah Branch, but he's kind of a hood ornament at times with that offense.
Mm-hmm. Irish 42, and I would strongly co-sign this. Either way, both teams have had a great season and playoff run. After the NIU loss, I thought Notre Dame was done. After the Michigan loss, I thought Ohio State was done. Been a great run for both teams, 100%. We keep talking about this, and going into the playoff, this was an awesome college football season, and it was an awesome college football season for Indiana football. How did it end? Not great. It was still one of the greatest season in Indiana football history. SMU, deader than disco after the death penalty for 30 years, makes the college football playoff. Did it go great? No. They made the college football playoff. That's awesome. Notre Dame had not won a major bowl game in 30 years. They've now won 2 in the last couple weeks. Marcus Freeman is the first African-American head coach in a national championship game. All of this is awesome. Ohio State looked like they were, if you were around Columbus after the Michigan game, it was not good times. I will, if Ohio State wins on Monday, rest assured, I will retweet the tweet that I had walking out of the stadium saying, well, we'll probably be back here in a few weeks. And you can read the replies about the mood that the Ohio State fan base was in at that point. Not great, not a great one. And then Ohio State has had this chance to not just be handed redemption, but earn redemption. Notre Dame has had to earn redemption. Notre Dame had to beat Indiana. They had to beat Georgia. They had to beat Penn State. These are good teams. No one is here by accident. Whoever wins this game is probably going to have the best resume in the history of college football in terms of good wins over top 10 type teams. Think about it. Ohio State would have a win over, if Ohio State wins, Oregon, Texas, Penn State, Notre Dame, Indiana, and Tennessee.
Thank you.
That's 6 wins, and many of them by multiple scores. Can you tell me the last time a team had 6 wins over top 10 teams, including a bunch of multi-score wins? I can't come up with one.
Maybe some preseason top 10s with some SEC teams.
Yeah,
which is that's just as good. It spends just as well, Tom.
Some might say better.
But the Ryan Day talking about losing to Michigan today, that you're either building momentum or you have to create momentum. And they had to create momentum after that Michigan loss. Notre Dame had to create momentum after their season ended in week 2 against Northern Illinois. And you have to reiterate, no, the season is not over. There is still a long season to play. And with Freeman, Marcus Freeman, the message there is we can overcome this. We've got 10 regular season games to play. The playoffs have expanded. This doesn't end our season. And with Ryan Day, the message was after the Michigan loss, we're still in the playoffs. Our season is not over. We still have something to play for. So both teams were able to manufacture their own momentum. Notre Dame was able to hold on to it and play through it. Now they've got momentum as well. Ohio State had to ramp it up in a hurry, but boy, I don't know that anybody has ever created momentum in a way that Ohio State has and then been able to carry through these 3 playoff games.
Yeah, for sure. And I am going to need to run out of here in about 5 minutes to get over to the Notre Dame practice, which will hopefully be more productive than the Ohio State practice. But we'll see. Only one way to find out. Wingman Ted wants to know, will we gather confetti for members if Ohio State wins the national championship? Feel free to plug the promotion. Well, just because Wingman Ted asked, we have been over the Rose Bowl and then the Cotton Bowl. We've picked up some confetti. We picked up some game programs from the Cotton Bowl and have been mailing those out to members at BuckeyeHuddle.com. Yes, the plan is if Ohio State wins, we will do that again. Pick up some national championship confetti, mail out little bags. Just kind of a fun way for you guys to get a little bit of what it's like to be here and that's entirely free, but is exclusive to members at BuckeyeHuddle.com. So if you want to sign up, you can do that right now. $4.99 for your first month. So if you want to think of it as $4.99 for a potential bag of confetti from the national championship game, that's a pretty good deal. I saw people were selling those on eBay for like $20. So really, you should sign up for 4 memberships and then get 4 bags for the price of 1, which still coming out ahead. Oh, by the way, you also get access to all of our insider content and
Tom,
all that stuff.
Yes. How much are those real confetti bags?
I don't know. I have only been sent like screenshots. I have not.
I don't want to
eBay.
say and just diminish the validity of eBay and what these bags of confetti might be.
Do I need to put like one of those hologram stickers on every piece of confetti?
100%.
We may need to raise the price of membership. I have to buy that many hologram stickers. I'm not sure that's gonna work.
There's no way all of that confetti on eBay is legit.
Yeah, I have seen stuff that was a little like that didn't look exactly like what I have.
Because like, have you ever bought sweat off of eBay? How do you even know if it's the real person's sweat that you're buying? Have you ever? Well, this is awful.
Anyway. So, you know what tastes better than sweat? I'll tell you what. If you're planning your next event, you should make it unforgettable with Grateful Griddle, Columbus's favorite food truck, serving up smash burgers, gourmet sandwiches, and good vibes. No sweat necessary. Book your catering today at gratefulgriddleoh.com.
All right. So, Tom, now's a great time to end the show. I do want to thank Grateful Griddle. I
would say 3 minutes ago was a great time to end the show, but that's all right.
No, we don't want you to miss your buzz. So if you have not yet, please hit the thumbs up before you go. We'd appreciate that if you're watching us live here or watching later on. And, of course, sign up youtube.com/Buckeye Huddle and hit the bell to be notified. Subscribe to the channel if you've not yet done so. And as Tom said, join us at BuckeyeHuddle.com. Fantastic time to become a member. Thank you all for tuning in, and we'll talk to you guys later.